Master Duel Reviews. As someone who's played the game for upwards of 9 years, since 2013, I'm just going to have a look at the reviews, give a bit of an opinion. It'll also give an insight to what other people actually think. What the fuck's a pendulum summon? I was asking that question in 2014. Now it's not so bizarre per se. Flip a coin, lose coin flip, opponent goes first, opponent draws the whole deck, wins in one turn. This is why Max C's there. Like, draw Max C, draw Gamma, draw Ash. That's kind of why it's there. Same with evenly matched and impermanence. Those are why those cards are there. But I've actually managed to get through some of those board states before. So I've been playing since launch and I enjoy it for the most part, but a honeymoon is over and starting to get bad. I knew free to play currency was going to be bottlenecked after a few days, but yeah, the ranked reset rewards, I would like there to be rewards for like getting to platinum or something like that. Something cool, you know. It feels a bit sad just to end the season, get to max rank, when there's no real point in getting to max rank except to get to max rank or say you've done so. Login rewards are kind of bad. I also agree, but don't disagree. Like it's hard to say. You get 100 per day. That's a 10 days, 110 pool. Well, you get 90, 95 per day. So you're really waiting 10 days for a 10 pool. Let's say it would take you about, you know, a full month to get somewhere decent, you know, 400 gems. It's a bit of a grind, but I feel like if they add in some events that will give more gems, it would actually boost the player base up. Well, give a bit of encouragement. It's not that hard to create decks, especially with the crafting points, so you shouldn't be in too much trouble, especially if you're running Ash Blossom Impermanence and all those. You can just fit them into your decks if you don't really have anything else, so it shouldn't really be that big of a problem. Yeah, I just want to see there to be more rewards, because it really feels like after you get to Plat 1, there's nothing to do. But then again, new players aren't really getting up to that level that quickly. No season reward gems, yep. You get shafted, blah blah blah. Generally same thing. But the decks that are like getting locked out by VFD are the decks that play VFD. Union Carrier is a bit busted. Ava and Ben 10, I agree. Okay, next review. Real review from Yu-Gi-Oh! Vet. I played for 99. Well, first of all, the game came out in roughly 2002, 2003. 99, you would have been playing the Konami OG game back in Japan. Timer needs to be much longer. I generally agree, the timer's a bit long. I mean, you don't need 10 minutes to do your combos. You should know what your deck does, and if you don't, I think is the fact that you really don't need that long time to decide plays, and you should use a story mode to kind of figure out your deck and implement other modes outside of ranked. Generally, I agree. Sometimes it can feel like there's not much interplay between anything. I mean, there's not many modes, not many variations between the meta, and the meta is pretty strict. You can only go a few ways with how you build your decks. So a few modes like a draft mode or something like that is a good idea. But then again, they kind of have all they have to enter new players into the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Sense. Maybe something to boost the current players up, you know, get them more adapted to actually playing. A few ways to earn more gems in game. I generally agree with it. There just needs to be some variety in the way you earn gems and ways to earn gems. Ban list, yeah, Max C, right? The reason why you don't need such a ban list is because Max C is there. It kind of saves a lot of things from going a weary. Community engagement, yeah, it's definitely a factor that you need, but Konami is already engaged with the community a lot more than it ever has. I'd love more animation of boss monsters, but those are just things to add on. Prices are fine because you can already build 2, 3, 4 decks, you know? Cosmetics, yeah, that would be fun. Generally, nothing too bad about this review. I kind of agree with the majority of the things he says. There needs to be some variety and, you know, that kind of stuff. I fell asleep waiting for others to finish his turn. The time is too long. It shouldn't be taking you too long to do your combos. They aren't that hard to go through. This game has finally helped me to learn and play Yu-Gi-Oh! Surprise them and play. Yeah, this is nice because I feel like if you already have an investment in the game, you have much more of a motivation to kind of, you know, play the game and get into it. But for a new player that doesn't have like an external motivation, it's really hard to get into the game just because it's more complex. And you also have multiple cards that you can, you know, go through that are actually needed if you want to play off meta or something like that. Completing all the primary objectives. Oh, spend your gems wisely. Yeah, that's some good messaging. Not really. First of all, this guy has 0.6 hours experience, so he wouldn't really know, or she wouldn't really know anything about the game based off this experience, right? And the decks that you're playing in Rookie aren't two-turn kill decks. They aren't that bad. It's just that you're probably running in with a structure deck without knowing what to do. You have to kind of learn the game, and this is a big problem with Master Duel. It doesn't actually guide new players through. And decks don't need a rating system. It's going to be hard to categorize, and the things that are just below the meta are still very powerful. Let's take Mermails. No one even ranks them or anything like that, but they can still hand loop you for 5. It might die to hand traps a lot quicker, but it can still kind of work through it, and it will still kill you within 2 turns. The deck rating system won't really work, or solve the problem that you're presenting. Maybe some new formats, maybe something to get new players in to actually understand how to play the game. There is a skill cap, but especially the newer players don't really know. Yeah, it needs something other than ranked. Really, really does. If I wanted to play meta, like, you can't really blame other people for wanting to win on ranked. Like, that's fine. You do have casual, but it glitches out all the time, so I can understand the gripe with that. Bad, great because it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Bad because it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Since most other reviews and gameplay aspects, yeah, it's... Honestly, I think the biggest is praising, but unfortunately Yeah, see, this is a person that's really salty about not, you know, having everything that you want. But in reality, you kind of do get everything you want. You can build like the 2-3 decks that you like, and then over time you can grind to get 4 or 5 decks, and those are the only decks that you'll probably truly play. Unless you're getting Heroes, Dark Magician, or those decks, you shouldn't really run out of resources, and you should be able to get through all the decks that you want. Solo missions, yeah. The thing is, I actually disagree. The solo missions are a bit dull, and you know, you could probably do something more. Probably bring the person into the storyline a bit more. Stuff like that would just make it more enjoyable as a solo mode. It can kind of be kind of dull. You're versing an AI that's not that smart, and I just went through it within, I think, 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah, it decreases exponentially, and that's why you have to spend your gems wisely. And that's the main thing. Solo missions can be, yeah, deck creation. You might have finite resources, but over time you can get everything you want. So this review, no, that's incorrect. If you have all the staples and you craft all the staples, generally there's like 4 or 5 ultra rares, especially let's say you build like a thing that has a lot of extra deck staples. If you get all the extra deck staples and the main deck staples, after that you really don't have much to do, right? Most decks don't run that many like ultra rare cards outside of that. And you should manage with like the bare minimums. All those things can be managed pretty well and pretty easily. Now I remember why I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! This is set up a board and make sure your opponent can't play. That's exactly what it is. But the fun is getting through your opponent's board, right? Now you've got to make a deck around that. Whether you're playing off meta or some shit like that, you kind of have to set your deck around to play through these things. And if these boards are heavily set up on first turn, what can they do second turn? They basically get screwed over. And stuff like that. In reality, right, this guy has played 6 hours and probably doesn't know that there's lots of cards to counteract these kinds of things. You don't have to play meta, and it's not that hard. You can play around 4 negates. It's very possible. And after you play around for the 4 negates half the time, they don't have too many follow-ups. Friendly review. Fan for this game is not for you. Yeah, this is well phrased. It's like older Yu-Gi-Oh! People who liked older Yu-Gi-Oh! And the kind of grindy, slow style, and more resource management. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh! There's more resource management and, you know, all that, but it's a bit more complicated. Yeah, it's not for you if you're really a good fan of old Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think the big difference here is if you want to play something like the old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Play something that simplifies the game state. Or play Summon Limit. Play those cards. And then you can get to a point where you're enjoying the game and you're slowing your opponent down. It'll piss your opponent off, but, you know, you'll be enjoying the game more. And, yeah. There's some solutions around that, but it's generally a very different game from what it was in the past. It's great for new Yu-Gi-Oh! I actually disagree with this. It's not great for new Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. Though the actual system itself is relatively intuitive, there's not very much things to teach you about staples and stuff like that. You might look it up on the internet, but to play off-meta decks and stuff like that, there's no real tutorial on the cards that you should fit in so you can compete against the meta. Like things like DD Crow against Eldritch and all those kinds of things. Or let's say you have something that can search out certain cards, you know. Understanding synergies with your decks and some really strong staple cards can actually make you competitive, right? So you don't have to play meta, and you can play the decks you want. But new players won't know that. And that's why, you know, new players leave. It's because they can't play the deck that they want, and they end up quitting. I've watched Drytron players like go full combo, and the guy just waits like 50 seconds to do everything. Unless you know your opponent can activate something like in the hand, you don't need to take that long. I like it does need a new format, but you know you can really go back and forth in game modes if you just play the right decks and know how to play the game. I auto surrender. Still kind of funny. Yeah. It's, again, if you want to play, like, really casual decks, you need to play with your friends in reality. This is the problem with some reviews. 0.6 hours in record, like, 0 experience, probably came in with the starter deck. Like, do you really think you know the game, like, straight up after 0.6 hours? You do not, and it's, like, at least give it... You need at least 20 hours just to experience everything you can do with one deck, right? And see what cards you need. Turn 1, you put down cards. Well, that's a problem. You're not doing enough on turn 1. You need floodgates, or like you need to set up a board turn 1. And you don't need to sit there for 20 minutes. You really just need to speed up the timer, or your opponent's just a fucking idiot. Extra deck, and their family kills you in 1 turn. Like, again, they're like 5,000 attack monsters like it's something amazing. But in reality, if you think about 6,000 or like 5,000 attack monsters, a Raigeki will kill that. The reality is the hard part's through the negates, but since you don't have much experience on record, it most likely won't, you know, you don't understand the game enough to play through some of this. Again, the enjoyment comes in through the niche interactions between two things. Yeah, it's just the niche and small interactions between hand traps and the way you play that really bring joy to the decks that you're playing. Negating things and understanding what your opponent's doing. Those subtle interactions is where the fun is at, especially in the top level. And then, you know, going through your opponent's board states, coming back, because there's lots of back and forth if you play your cards right. But if you don't have a deck designed to play against the meta, or you don't have a deck that has hand traps, etc., you're gonna get bodied. Like, it's like rocking up to a competition, but you haven't trained a day in your life, right? What do you think's gonna happen? You're gonna lose. Again, this is put down 1 card, sit there, wait 20 minutes. That's the same complaint. Oh, I hate this. Removed all toxic comments. Get good, right? You're using a deck from 10 years ago. Get good. Like, the thing is, let's check the deck out, right? from what I'm seeing, this specific deck, you can definitely win. You can get to Plat 1. It's a matter of, like, playing against the meta. Like, you have 3 Ash Blossoms, you have 3 Max Siege, you have, all that. And there is an element of get good. With this deck, you can get to Platinum 1. You can get pretty high up with non-meta decks. You just have to play against the meta more. Bring back old Yu-Gi-Oh, not this. Well, Yu-Gi-Oh has to develop in some way, otherwise the game becomes saying you've never played the real Yu-Gi-Oh. It's not toxic. It's true, right? You're kind of deflecting the problem. Like, let's say if you want to win, right? There's always going to be something better than something else, right? It's just the extent it's gone to. And you can play 1,000,001 decks competitively, really. Like, you can do well with a lot of decks. You don't have to go with one. And since people saying you're using a deck from 10 years ago, here you go. It's not going to be that hard if you drop a summon limit on Drytron per se. It's not going to be hard to defeat Tri-Brigade if you know that you can de-fissure all of them. The knowledge is key. And yeah, it's a lot of just personal experience that leads people to think that their deck's not good enough, blah, 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 right? You really need to get good. There is a lot of elements of get good in this game. Like, people saying there's no get good in Yu-Gi-Oh! The amount of misplays that 95% of people that say that, I've always found this, but the people that are really good at things, don't complain as much. But they say that something's the way it is, right? Or they aren't aggressive as in complaining about it. But in Yu-Gi-Oh! There is a get good. First of all, get good can come into deck building. Get good can come into the way you play Ash, Maxi. I've misplayed, I've lost duels, and yeah, they seem insequential at the time, but as you develop playing the game and as you develop as a duelist, you really can get a lot better and play horrible decks. You don't have to play good decks and win. This review is pretty dumb. Solo doesn't have any... So, this person's enjoying the game, but it's just salty. You can see the way he writes it, right? But the degenerate... It's not degenerate to, copy their deck if you're a new player. Like, you don't know what you're doing if you're new. And, yeah... Wikipedia? Who's getting the decks from Wikipedia? These criticisms come from Salt because Mother's credit card, you really don't need anything. You can make a very playable deck with literally no money. You can deviate from the meta and still get... Like, I've seen Plat 1 Dark Magician play, and also Plat 4 Dark Magician players. One of them beat me, but I bricked pretty hard on that, but they still beat me, and I'm playing, like, zombie Eldritch spam. So, a lot of these things, especially some of the real negative kind of comments, come from Salt, and also an element's not always on the players. Sometimes it is on the game, because the game doesn't teach you enough. It really needs to guide you into how to play, what to play, and the best things to play. Yeah, I think, personally, my thoughts on the game is that it needs a better tutorial for new players. It needs things to teach new players what cards are good against, very strong decks. Let's say Eldritch, etc. Again, a lot of these experiences can be positive if they are taught properly. The thing is, there is a disparity between AI and playing online. The newbie level isn't bad. I started off a newbie level, and up until I think I was like Platinum 4 when I dropped my first game. I lost one game. The newbie experience, like, if you're a newbie, the other newbies aren't playing well. But they probably just have a slightly better deck where they special summon summoning 3 monsters. It kind of just shows that a lot of the people aren't guided into understanding what Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually is, and expect a lot from the anime, which it doesn't give you. Especially the original Yu-Gi-Oh! I think the newer animes kind of give you a better idea of what it is. Yes, I agree. A mode for true beginners, limited card pool, and all that will help people get into the game and help people enjoy the game. I generally think this part is very true. You need something that can help people adjust to the new meta. You could play, like, you could create a thing called Draft Mode 1, Draft Mode 2, and Draft Mode 3. Draft Mode 1 geared to new players, 2 from new players to more experienced, and 3 for very experienced players that can kind of put together a deck and combo off however they like, you know? Stuff like that. I'll leave with this one sentiment. I love playing live twin decks right now. Fun seeing how people love to play meta and keep losing to it. Like, this is an example of a person that's gotten good, right? As you can see, 41 hours. Obviously has some experience in the game. And this is really, really what new players don't understand. They think you have to play meta. But this live twins aren't that good. It's really not that good of a deck. But, you know, they grind out resources, they're a fun deck to play, and overall, they're not that good. But people lose to them if you play against the meta, understand what things do, and, you know, grind out games. Secrets of Eternity was released in January 2015. This set introduced Infernoids, a series of monsters that can special summon themselves to the field by banishing other Infernoids from either the hand or graveyard. Notable cards in the set include Farther, Malbranch of the Burning Abyss, Clifford Monolith, Unizombie, Nest Shadow Fusion, and a card that will bolster Stellar Knights to combat the Burning Abyss Shadow meta, Constellar Diamond.